Well, the changes we've seen in Guymon may well be a preview of what our entire state is set to experience. Since 1990, Oklahoma's Hispanic population has increased by 108%, while in Tulsa, it's grown by over 300%. Earlier, I sat down with Fred Ramos, the head of Oklahoma's Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So, Fred, what type of impact are Hispanic immigrants having on Oklahoma's economy?
Let me take it from this time forward. Right now, it's probably the biggest impact in the economy's purchasing power. What I mean by that is they're accumulating a lot of purchasing power right now. A nationwide number in 2004, Hispanic purchasing power was like $630 billion. And by the year 2009, it's going to be $1 trillion. That's a big number. That's a market everybody wants part of. Now let's take it from this time backward for a bit. Hispanics have always been in the state. They kind of followed the railroad as the railroad started to develop. You can see chains of communities start from the southwestern part of the state up through the northeastern. So you see them in Lawton, you'll see them in Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Heavener, on through there. Now, we're going to continue to grow because we're a very young group. In fact, a third of all Hispanics are under the age of 18, okay? And we're going to continue to grow. And what I'm seeing now, Rob, is that Hispanics are getting their entrepreneurial feet underneath them, and they're starting to expand into businesses. I've had 2 or 3 in Tulsa come to me specifically that are selling their restaurants. You always think of a Hispanic, traditionally a Mexican restaurant, selling their restaurants and getting into other fields, real estate, home siding, home construction. They're starting to expand. The other thing I'm seeing is internal migration. I'm seeing a lot of Hispanics move from Texas and California. And California is a good example. Let's say a Hispanic there bought a home about 10 years ago and recently sold it for about $800,000. They come here, they buy a great home for, let's say, $300,000. They have $500,000 to invest. Okay, so it's a good foundation in the labor-intensive industries. Of course, there's a lot of second and third generations that are professional, but the bulk is starting to get into more and more entrepreneurial activities.
Now, you mentioned the demographics. What is that going to mean educationally, and how do we educate these first generation immigrants?
Well, it's already being impacted now, and what I mean by that is Tulsa Public Schools. Well, let me pause and give you a number here real quick. I don't want to give you too many numbers, but here's kind of like a point of reference, okay? The Census Bureau says by the year 2030 that the United States will be 20% Hispanic. Now, Pew Hispanic Center says we'll be about 20% Hispanic by the year 2020. So whichever number you want to go with, okay? Regardless, I say 15, 25 years from now, 20% of the United States population will be Hispanic. 20%. Now, today, 18% of Tulsa Public Schools is Hispanic. Today. Today, 30% of Oklahoma City Public Schools is Hispanic. Today. In Guymon Public Schools, 61% are Hispanic. Are those school systems ready? Do they accommodate that change in culture, in particular with the first generation? A first generation Hispanic is like a first generation anything. Okay? Traditionally, they do not have skills, they do not have education, and 71% of a first generation, again, anything, rely on their native tongue. And there's cultural issues. They don't understand the culture. Okay? Now, a second generation anything, only 7% of them rely on their native tongue. Okay? So you have to look at what's in the school system today and how are you accommodating that cultural impact. As an example, does lack of being able to speak English, does that mean you don't have skills? Does that mean you don't know other subjects? Does that mean you don't know math? No, not necessarily at all. But a lot of times as kids try to come up and learn the language very quickly, they tend to put them back a little bit in other subject areas. I guess the question each city has to ask themselves is, our school system ready for Hispanics?
We're all aware of the company that maybe shuts its doors here in Oklahoma and will move its operation to Mexico. What other impact does the Latino culture have on just globalization and our economy in general?
Oklahoma is the 4th best state to do business in because of low cost of wages. That's what drives a lot of immigrants here. You know, immigrants are not going to go to Silicon Valley or Wall Street. They can't be competitive there. Here they can be competitive. Why are they competitive? It's low skilled, low education types jobs. We need to get away from that.
But do we need those low-skilled laborers, for lack of a better term?
Sure we do. Sure we do. And if you do not import workers, you're going to export jobs.
What do you believe will happen with the Hispanic community over the next 2 decades here in Oklahoma?
I've given you some economic cases. Let me give you some political cases, if I may. Okay. In the 2000 election, of all the Latinos and Hispanics in the United States, 25% of them were in the process of getting their citizenship papers. 33% of them were under the age of 18. What I'm saying is 60% of them couldn't vote. So in other words, you have not seen the impact of them in the political processes yet. However, let's take the last 3 presidential elections, just the last 3. In the last 3 presidential elections, the Democrats lost 10% and the Republicans gained 10% of the Hispanic vote. And the quickest way you could see that is in 2000, both New Mexico and Florida went Democrat, and not so in the last election. You're starting to see them move through the political system. And in essence, you haven't seen anything yet, practically, okay? Now, from an education standpoint, they're just now hitting the educational system, okay? And I've given you the numbers already for Oklahoma City Public Schools in Tulsa. However, we're encouraging them to embrace the fact that you need more education. A high school degree is not a signal of success anymore, okay? You need to go to the knowledge type of careers. You need to go in that direction because of productivity. Now, the United States has always had high productivity rates, but lately, in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been some institutions make a case of this. Bear Stearns, as one, that's an example, has made the case that our productivity is greatly inflated because we are not counting the input of the undocumented, or only counting the output of the undocumented. So they're already making a contribution to the economy. So as we continue to move through the system, we're encouraging the Hispanic students, take the hard courses, have college as a goal, be sure you're going to be able to compete. You're going to see a lot of first-generation Hispanics do menial work, low-skill work, because they do not have skills or education. So you do see a lot of Hispanics in construction. You see a lot of them in the service industry. You see a lot of them mowing lawns. I'm a second-generation Hispanic. I'm not going to mow your lawn, okay? Well, I guess I would if the price is right. But the point is, I have other options, okay? And as you start seeing the second generation move through the system, there's some second-generation Hispanic high school kids, Rob, that do not speak Spanish. So this whole language issue is getting blown out of proportion. It's only big because there's so many first-generation Hispanics. But in the next 20 years, like you were saying, you're going to start to see the second-generation Hispanics move through the system. You're going to start to see individuals like me move through the system. There's not going to be individuals like you might have seen outside at mowing yards, doing construction work. That work's going to go away. I don't know who's going to do it. Maybe it's another wave of immigrants.
As we move from first generation to second generation, and even now third generation immigrants, a lot of people have talked about the Latinoization of America, but I think you have a flip side to it.
There is an Americanization of Latinos going on, okay? My real name is Federico Ramos. How come I told you it was Fred? Okay, Fred's easier to say. I'm more comfortable with Fred, you know? And I'm second generation Hispanic. A third generation Hispanic would probably tell you his name's Fred Ramos, because that's even easier, okay? And a third generation Hispanic may not even be able to speak Spanish. And like I mentioned to you, my Spanish has an Oklahoma twang to it, okay? So there is an Americanization of Latinos going on. We're just not aware of it because there's so many first generation Hispanics, okay? And we think most of them are from immigration. No. Since the year 2000, the growth in the Hispanic population in the United States has came from births, not from immigration. My grandmother was Mexican ancestry. And according to the family Bible, she's like the 7th generation born in Victoria, Texas. So her family came over from Spain and up through the Gulf Coast and up through Texas, etc. I mean, been here since the 1600s. I mean, we came here before the English came. Okay, so on my grandmother's side, she didn't cross the river crossed her. Okay, we've been here for a long time. Okay, and some have just assimilated a lot quicker than others. And the ones that assimilated quicker, that got comfortable with the culture, was the key to the success. And the American dream is done in the American way. But there's the Hispanic characteristics that you want to bring to it, as any other immigration way. If you want the Italian characteristics, you want the Irish characteristics, it just goes on and on. But eventually we'll become Americanized. We will.
Interesting subject. Thank you for your insights.
Sure, absolutely.